Hey, I see somebody has connected and I can't tell who it is. I just get to see it. I have my laptop set aside so I can't type right now. If I'm watching all of this, I can't type. Oh, good. Let me get back to my spot so I can hear you and you can hear me. Let's see. I'm back to my spot. Can you hear me all right? Just go ahead and type in the chat. Oh, good. So there is a little bit of a delay because I'm streaming, but I'm just starting. I'm definitely maybe behind you, but I've got my canvas and my paints, and I've got a spray bottle, my different brushes. I mixed up some of this PVA glue and water to make my medium. And I also have a wet palette, but I'm not gonna use it right now. What it is there's a lid that comes off, and this is the actual palette part. You're gonna do a lot of painting that has a lot of time between when you start and when you end. You can have a wet paper towel or cloth or sponge, and then this is the lid inverted, and then putting that down, and then this is just a piece of parchment paper cut to size, and then you put your paint right on that parchment paper, and that will keep your paint fresh as you're doing different processes instead of trying to cover your paint and your painting. The other thing, if you have a container, like this is just a lunch meat container recycled, where the lid snaps on, if you're not going to be super long, you can just use it without having the wet paper towel, but have it snap on and seal and keep your paints fresh. So I'm going to set that aside. And I have a palette. I'm going to rearrange just a little bit. I wanted you to see what my setup was like. And I noticed that my microphone, I'm not careful, my microphone picks up things like moving brushes and those uncomfortable noises really a lot. So I'm going to put down this rag underneath my brushes so it doesn't make a bunch of noise. Make sure that's right in the center. Underneath I have a tag board to protect my table. And this is the palette, my dry palette that I like to use. It's just a lid. I'm super fancy here, like super bougie. My recycling bin water cup and paper towel and my spray bottle. Got that too. So you've already started. Brushes. And I saw how far yours is. And you've already got this base paint ready to go. Get all my paints. I'm going to put my paints off camera, but where I can access them more easily. So our painting is a night scene, and so I definitely want some different blues. My lights and my darks. I've got Admiral blue, sky blue. I think this is too green, but I'm going to leave it out just because I like that color. I might use it. I've got cobalt hue. Pavement. I don't have any black paint. Like, how weird is that? No black paint. I do have a Caribbean blue, but I might use that for like the Northern Lights part. Also, I'm gonna set that one up here. That there. My darkest blue. I think that's my darkest blue. Also have a little bit of white for later. And for later, this is an antique white, which is kind of like a cream. Double check. And looking at that picture, there was definitely, like, towards the middle, there's like those flecks. I might use some of the metallics. There's a little bit of gold, Inca gold. I think that's it for those colors right now. I don't have a lot of dark blues. I've got a seriously limited amount right now. So when I first start, if I'm going to do a landscape, I'm going to imagine where my horizon line... Oh, wait, no, we're doing a different one. Huh, never mind. I don't need that part. I was imagining doing the one with the moon in the center. I don't know why. But if I did want a horizon line, what I would do here, instead of drawing across the entire canvas, I would mark on either side for myself. I'll do it anyways. Just a little bit so I can see where that line should be. You want your horizon line to be level. If it's not, if you have any water in there, you end up having this waterfall effect. And even if it's just a tiny little difference, it makes a big feel for being something that's just not right with the picture. And really it has to do with the straightness of that horizon line. So we're going to pretend it's there for right now. I probably won't use my pencil much other than that. I don't like to draw on my canvas because if I go over that with a lighter color, it can transfer into the paint. It has like just that graphite will move with the acrylics. Okay, so the first step, it's a primed canvas. It has gesso, so it's sealed and it's ready to paint on. But with my paint, I have a medium, and instead of using water to, I'm not going to dilute the color, but make it more fluid to make it move over, and it kind of makes it creamier, I think is the right word. So instead of using water to extend my colors, I'm going to use this, but I'm also going to put that on the canvas to kind of make everything smooth. I'm going to start with some darks and probably my lightest light and my darkest dark that I'm going to mix with this blue. Just use this one so I don't shake it quite as much. And they're pretty good consistency. You can see them pooling up. These ones are not super high quality paints. They don't come from the tube. They're a little more viscous than what would come out of a tube, but not so watery that they're unusable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of in the center and work my way out. Now I know it's a night scene, so I'm going to stick to my darkest blue here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this lighter blue to add that glow. So I'm going to work out from the center, and my brush is a square brush. It's the biggest brush I have with me right now. I'm going to take my gesso, or excuse me, not my gesso, my medium. And before I start painting, I'm just going to give a nice layer over the whole thing where I plan to paint. That paintbrush, you know what? I don't like this one. That one doesn't feel right. Stick this in the water. Something funky about that one. I don't know. It's like weird. I don't like it. Got some more over here. Okay, try that again. I'm gonna go switch to this one. So picky. So again, I'm just gonna lightly coat this canvas with this mixture of, it's about 1 part PVA white glue to, no, I said that backwards. 2 parts PVA to 1 part water. And this glue was pretty thick when I poured it out, so I really didn't need a lot of water, but I definitely needed some. I think like if you use an off-brand or store brand, I won't say their name that I'm thinking of specifically. There's a brand out there that makes really awful watery glue. It's just painfully watery. If you had that glue, you could probably just use it straight. So I'm going to my palette. This is completely covered. And I'm going to start with the corner of my brush in blue, and then the corner of my brush in my lightest blue. I'm going to take these and I'm going to make some X's. So when I brush, I'm going back and forth. And it's going to blend. And that medium that's on there helps it to kind of smooth that paint as it's going on. You know, back and forth together. And I'll slow down. I'm pulling both colors through. Now I've got this, I'm going to say line on either side. Now it has some of that lighter blue. I'm going to stick right with that solid blue. And I haven't rinsed my brush because I want this to be a nice blend. It takes a little bit. Getting right to those edges. All the way around. And as it's gonna dry a little bit, it's gonna change. And kind of feather it into itself. Ooh, I just heard a ding. I think that's my Facebook. Let's see if somebody's trying to get in. Oh, good. I'm reading the chat since you guys can't see if anybody else is in. I think there's a couple people in. I was saying this is awesome to know. I hope I'm not sending any bad habits out there. So I'm gonna work this in a little bit. And it's okay that it's like smeary right now. There's a lot of movement to it. I'm gonna reload my brush with just a little bit of this light blue, and I'm gonna try and work this back into itself. And because it's such a wet paint with that float medium on there, the brush strokes that you see now will kind of settle out. As you're mixing and blending, it just kind of flattens and moves. So once I get it, I'll start like pulling it this way, but all these X motions are just for blending purposes. Okay, so I've got this blue up here. I'm going to start adding a little bit of the pavement towards the top. Because it is night, and this is definitely a dark scene. Even though I can't see through the trees that are going to be here at the bottom, everything I do at the top, I'm doing to the bottom. And that's especially important if you're painting water, because the sky is going to be mirrored in water down below. And even if you're painting over it, it really helps to balance the picture. It's not very fast-paced. See if I can. You can already see in the middle where it's starting to kind of fade and feather. Moving pretty quickly as I'm going. The paint is starting to get like a tacky feel to it. You can definitely feel that it's moving and changing underneath my brush. I'm going to start getting more of this blue. So this blue, part of the reason why I didn't mix this central blue that I got it straight out of the jug is because I'm mixing these other ones in. And as I'm feathering and fading, I'm going to go back and use this middle blue, this middle tone more, to kind of rebalance everything as I'm going. I'm going to get a little bit more. It's the Admiral blue. Now, I know some people will take their spray bottle and spritz their palette at this point, and I don't particularly like to do that. I feel like I end up making more of a mess that way. These transitions can be tough from the light to dark. But having that base with the medium, the float medium, will help balance out any of that streaking. It'll just kind of settle into itself. I don't know if you can see, it's already, you can see some brush strokes, but it's already settling into itself. And then you get these sides here. That's me just being in a hurry because I'm on camera and kind of feeling stressed. Stage fright. I don't usually paint on canvas because I feel like it's kind of fussy and I end up using way more paint than if I wasn't using canvas. I've got a lot of paint up here. I'm going to scrape the edge of my brush on that and then scoop that back up. I feel like I know that there's no pressure when I have the camera on. It's just that the camera's actually on. Like, don't mess up! Don't mess up! People are waiting! So I have this very, very gradual gradient here. Which is what I want. I don't want any stark lines or streaking. Before, like I said, I was doing that X motion because I was pulling the paint to mix with itself. Now I'm kind of getting everything to settle. My light is a weird angle in here, and I didn't realize how glossy and reflective this paint was. I know, no mistakes, only happy accidents. I'm not even to that part where it's technical yet. Just setting this stage, this background. I can feel the paint is starting to get a little bit tacky underneath, and that's good. That's what I want. So I just got a little bit more of that gray up here at the top, but I need to make sure that it's blended. Just overlap. One of the nice things about the acrylic is it dries relatively quickly. So you can be a fast painter. Speed painting. I'm just touching up these spots here, making it just the way I want it. And I'm holding the brush at the end here, and there's so little pressure because I don't want what I was doing was knocking the paint off this corner. I don't want to do that. So we got a pretty even coat here. There is some streaking, but I need to leave that alone so that I am not making it streakier. I just need to let it settle in. I am going to go right here in the center and add just a touch more of that white. So sometimes if you can see up here, sometimes while I'm painting, I like to have my tag board, scooch that over, underneath of me rather than a paper towel, because sometimes I just need to test some colors before I start mixing on my canvas. So I'm just taking a corner here and pre-mixing it. That's a little bit, I'm going to start working in here to get that aura effect. It's a little bit lighter than what I want. I was thinking about switching brushes. So this is a very flat square brush, and this is a round sable brush. Gosh, it's been so long since I had to think about it. Ooh, I just got a notification. Okay, there we go. I think I cut out there for a second. So the different brushes, it really depends on your style and how you're using them. These ones, if you press and pull, it leaves a different mark than if you press and pull this. It'll kind of give like a petal of a flower mark. Here, I'll just do it. So this one I'm going to press and pull. Oh, I need a little bit more than that. Now I wanted to dip into the water there because my brush is really dry, but I went right for my medium to saturate my brush rather than my water. I want the flow of the medium, but not the solvent action of the water. So if I was going to do some flowers or leaves, I might do this versus what this would look like. So this one is good for blending. That might be a good leaf too. But I'm going to switch from this one to this one for now. I'm not going to wash it quite yet because I might switch back. There's quite a bit of paint on there. So this brush, and I'm going to take just a little bit of that white because we're going for that aura, that nice soft aura that starts kind of in the middle here. Let me go back to those kind of X marks here. Ooh, it's still a little bit tacky. Just kind of hoping it would dry a little bit more. There we go. So there was that little bit of a horizon line, and there will be in any landscape painting really, but not as much in something where you don't see the landscape or the horizon line itself. So we're going to have the trees in this kind of a U shape here. So the horizon line would be somewhere down here that's covered by the trees. But we still have that aura effect where there's some sort of glow from either the moon or maybe the sunrise or sunset. Even though we don't have the color of that sunrise or sunset, it's still happening, it's still there. I'm getting a little bit of tackiness where it's pulling my paint. So I'm reapplying just a little bit more here with that Admiral, the dark blue. It's a little bit fussy. But once you get this down, you can start working on the rest of it. And if you start working on the rest of it before you will feel good about your background, it's really hard to do much about it. It's a very subtle gradient here. We're trying to be subtle. And I'm just pulling over barely into where I think my trees are going to be. I'm imagining my trees around here. Okay, so I feel pretty good about that. Let me set this here for a second. I'm gonna pick it up to see that the reflection, my lighting in here is so bright right now on my eyes. that it's a little bit hard to see. There's a little bit here that's a touch dry. I'm going to switch back to this one with just a little bit of this black or pavement right here. A little too much. Whoops. There. I was just doing too much pressure. Okay, now there's a little dot right there. I'm not worried about that because my trees are going to come down and around. I'm going to rinse my brushes, and if you have any questions so far, go ahead. I'm going to rinse brushes, read the chat, and think about my stars through here. Think about that nightscape, what it's going to look like. There's a lot of paint in there. I'm just rinsing this. I'm going to wash these in the sink. I usually rinse them till there's no color left on the brush, and then do a full wash later when I'm done painting for the day under the sink. And with my nice paint brushes, I use shampoo and some conditioner. I don't want them to have bad hair days. So we've got those brushes there that'll be rinsed later. And I'm gonna start thinking about my other colors. I have this amethyst that's a metallic color. And ooh, look at, I've got some sparkle paint. I'm not gonna use this. Maybe I'll use the sparkle paint. Could. This one is purple iris. These will all work for this next step. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my brush like this and flick the paint. I'm gonna try and keep it towards the middle. I don't have the picture pulled up. Actually, let me go pull up the picture so I can get a reference again, because I can't see it on my screen. Hold on. Kind of a weird setup with my computer screen and my mouse, because my computer fan is super loud. I had to put it off to the side. Okay, I meant to do this before I had my reference picture pulled up so I could see. Okay, there we go. And I accidentally closed my chat window so I couldn't see it. It was still going. Okay. So I've got my chat window back up. Sorry about that little delay there. I've got my reference picture up. And, oh no, I don't. Where in the world is there's my mouse. There we go. Okay, now I have my reference picture and my screen up so I can see your chat again on YouTube. And we've got kind of a glow, maybe a little bit more of a glow on the reference picture than what I have. But there's a little more lavender in there on that one. And I'm kind of waiting for this to dry just a little bit before I go any further. Now, if this were on paper, I would totally do this. You can take either a sponge or a really long bristled brush, or even using a piece of paper towel, and dab the lighter colors or the clouds or auras. That's like aurora borealis. I can't talk. You could totally do that on paper. I'm a little hesitant on the canvas just because it's not as dry as it would be if I were painting on paper. Paper, when you paint with acrylics on paper, it dries really quick. And because this is a sealed canvas, it's good because it doesn't soak up the water as much, but it ends up being a little bit longer to dry. You can see the sheen on there, that it's still pretty tacky. This one, I'm gonna try it. I want to see. I've got this iris, and I'm being impatient. I've got this amethyst. I'm gonna at least try with the amethyst a little bit, like right in here. You can see this is where I want my trees. So if it's terrible, I guess I can cover it up with trees. No mistakes. So there is my shiny metallic amethyst. And maybe a little bit of, oh, that's a little dark. This is the purple iris. I'll try it with this one, I think. It's got some bad hair day. It's the kids' brushes. I am gonna have a little bit more of that Admiral Blue on the palette. So I'm not completely killing it with the purple. So when I do it, I'm going to just really lightly tap, and I don't want it to be a pattern that is like repeatable. So as I'm doing it, I'm going to spin my brush so that every time I hit the canvas as I'm moving, I'm just adding a different texture to it. So there's a little bit more of that. Ooh, that's really hairy. And just a touch of that purple. I'm practicing over here. It's really nice to have that practice spot. See how it relates. So my tree line is about right in here. I'm starting to see where those trees are going to be. Yeah, that's nice. I'm not blending it like it was before. I want a little bit of that color difference. The visual, maybe because I'm looking at a computer screen for my original image, maybe it looks like it just has a lot of texture, but I definitely like that it has a lot of texture. So I'm gonna keep rolling with that. I think it's interesting that it gives that to the night sky, that glow and texture. And I imagine my trees are going to come up here. I'm not going to go under that line. I'm just going to stay over it. And I am going to lessen the amount of amethyst and purple that I use as I make my way up to kind of fade it into that blue there. I want it to be some, but not nearly as much as I have down here. Again, that horizon line, I'm imagining like way off in the distance so you can't see that maybe the sun is setting or the moon is setting or rising about there, but we can't see it yet because it's too far away. Kind of fading it into itself. Now, there's definitely some aura going on in the original, kind of sweeping up in this central point, and it kind of starts about here and it S's down and over. So we're gonna go down and around, but really this is gonna be my brightest spot for this. Might even go back and add a little bit more of that lighter blue next, but we're gonna layer this part on because this part is definitely not flat like the sky would be. So I'm going to start here and work my way up, almost like a smoke trail. I'm starting here because this will be the brightest. And then this is the lightest. So there's almost like an S curve there. So that is my central part of that aura. And I don't want any part really more or less bright after here. I'm looking at that. So it kind of sweeps in waves. I think the next part, I'm going to add a little bit of this lightest light blue and do just about the same thing. So I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to keep with that nice texture to it, and it already has a lot of that blue. And pulling away just a little bit more. This brush is seeing some better days. And then just, again, just a touch of that blue in the same way. And if I pick up some purple on the way, that's cool. It just makes it more flowy. Just kind of goes together. So again, I'm going to start at this base and I'm going to work my way up. It's just some of that lighter blue. I'm not going to try and cover up my amethyst. I may even add a little bit more in there. We've got a little bit of a glow. With that lighter blue. Now, one thing I could do, this blue kind of flows. If you want to give those rays, those lines, I would take a dry brush and knock down some of those higher points. My blue up here is a little bit too wet for doing that all the way, but with a dry brush we can pull and manipulate that way to give it more of a burst. See, I kind of pulled it there too much. But if you want that burst, you can do back and forth of adding those little bits and then pulling it to give the aura effect. We keep working on my purples and light blues to give that glow. And again, this is my lowest point. Of the brightest point is down here. And it kind of arcs too. Just a little bit more. And that dry brush again. So it's a little bit reflective right here, but you can start to see that there is some of my paint pulling up because I'm working wet on wet. It's probably not the best choice right now, but I'm going to stop where it's sticky and return back to that texture, and then I'm going to start flinging my paint to give more of the night sky. If yours is dry already, you could probably pull it up and into the sky more so that there's more rays. But I'm going to stop there for right now and go to this next little bit and fling the paint. It's like building up different layers, different gradients. A little more purple, lavender down here. Oh yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Got that nice base. And I'm going to set my brush here for that one. And then this one was my dry brush from before. It's a flat brush. You can go this way with it. So my colors for my night sky. Ooh, I hope I didn't cut out. I've got a lot of the white and some lavenders and some light blues, but I think the flecking from the paint is probably not pure white on there. Hold on. Seeing I'm getting chats in Facebook, but I didn't have it pulled up. I heard some binging. Let's see, make sure nobody's trying to get in. Oh, there's those kiddos. Oh. Okay, I'll close that back out. I wasn't sure if I was getting binged from Facebook that I was missing something or not. So back to that painting part, back to this live stream. And it's slowly drying. You can see right here is still really wet, and this is a little bit more dry. This is definitely dry, which is good, because if I started to try to paint my trees down here before this was completely dry, I think I would end up with a mess. So we've got definitely some of these lavenders and some antique white. And I can't tell like what color blue from the photo on the, oops, the photo on the computer is. Losing my words. I was thinking about using some of these also. Now that I've got it on the canvas, I might use a teeny bit of this, but I think this one might be too greeny blue. Oh, that's really thin. Ooh. Okay. I'm going to start with this purple, this lavender, and I'm going to practice and see. Oh, that's nice. There's two ways you can do it depending on your paint. You can fling it this way, or get your hands messy. I think that this way is a little bit more accurate. I did get my brush into the water there because I want it to be thin, because then it'll move. Yeah, that's not doing it for me. It's really hard for me to see. I might need to put this up here for just a second with something underneath. It's like that splatter painting. There we go. I think it's a little more viscous now. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So if I go close to the canvas, I get this nice tight spray. And at the end, that last one is like wham. And if I'm way up here and I do it, it's going to get all over the canvas. So again, down close versus like up here, I'm getting like sprayed all over. Okay, so there's that one. And there we go. Cool. Okay, a little bit more water. I'm gonna do some of this lighter. It's okay if it mixes. I mean, kind of blend all my colors. Do a test over here. Oh yeah. And it's okay that it's getting down here because I'm gonna cover it up with my trees. I'm kind of aiming up at this line because that's where that concentration is. And the last one, I am gonna dry my brush a little bit in between and clear off my hand. I really want some of that blue, I think. I think that'll be cool for this one here. I think it'll make it really pop. And this blue is really watery anyways. I'm not gonna add any water to it. I'm gonna focus again down pretty close. To that central point. Oh yeah, that's really viscous. I need definitely some more. I can even see once it's dried, it's making the teeniest, tiniest little dots everywhere. The splatter definitely takes a little bit of practice to figure out those spray patterns. I've seen a lot of people use their old toothbrushes or unused toothbrushes. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And I think that just adds, you end up having to hold it sideways, and I think you have more control this way to do it. So I've got the blue there, and as I'm adding these layers, the blue is kind of overpowering a little bit of that lavender. This looks like spray paint. So I'm gonna, before I finish, I really want that lavender to show up. I think it looks cool. I'm sticking pretty close to this my tree line here. It's not the horizon line, but the tree line. Oh, I guess stink bug right there. I don't know if he's on camera or not. He's coming to see what's going on. So I'm feeling good with the amount of blue I have, and I'm going to switch back to the lavender, and then switch to the trees. So a little bit of water, and then back to my lavenders. Still quite a bit of blue there, and I'm okay with that. I just want it to be more viscous so it can really splatter. And that blue helps to mix it too, I think. So there's that. Okay. I'm not going to do any more white. I feel good. I feel good about that. So I'm going to wash these two brushes, or rinse, excuse me. And then move on to my trees. So if this were a bigger painting and I needed to step away from this right now, having a wet palette would be nice, because you can see my palette definitely, there's some shiny spots where the paint is still fresh, but there's also over here where the paint is definitely dry. And if I were making my own custom colors, this would be a bummer if it was dried out, if I was trying to color match if I came back next time. So I try and do layers where I don't have to color match, and I think that's because I just learned about wet palettes. I never had one before. And I know that one of the advantages of oil paints is that they take forever to dry, but turpentine makes me sick. It gets almost an instant headache. So I've used them before, but man, I had to be in a very well ventilated area, and I can't do it for very long at a time. So I don't have a lot of experience with oils because they don't make me feel very well. So I'm gonna set these guys down, and with the clean part of my little bit that's left of my paper towel, before I start adding these trees, I want to make sure that there's no wet white paint, that when I start painting my black on top of it, I do not want to mix that in. I don't want any grays at all. So I'm gonna just double check, make sure there's no wet paint right along there. Now, when I'm gonna go straight with the darkest dark I have. I could even wait till this is dry and go back with a Sharpie for black permanent marker if I felt like the control was better in that, if I wanted to. But I'm gonna go with the pavement. Here it is, the pavement, which is almost a black. And I'm gonna use this round brush. And when I paint my trees, I paint left to right because I'm right-handed. If I tried this way, it would be super, super awkward. And when I paint my trees, I'll do my practice here. Load this guy up. It's starting to get dry, so I'm gonna get a little bit that float medium. I definitely do not want to get this any thinner than it is. I want a heavy coat of this color. And when I paint my trees, usually I start at the base and go up to the treetop. So there's my top, and then I come back down, and it's like giving it a mustache on either side. So I'm working my way through, and every time it's a little further out. So I get to there, I'll reload my brush and fill that in. And each one I'm just pulling out, and then lots of pressure, a little bit of pressure. The fan brushes are nice for taking the paint, and I'm gonna get this one a little wet just because I'm not going to actually use it. So fan brush, you can do trees really nicely. You start here and then you rotate your brush and kind of fan it out, and you can do a lot of trees really fast and then fill it in also. So that pattern can be used for trees. That one's all watery, but I think you get the point. But that's really nice for branches and having a very organic structure that you would want with a tree, especially a pine tree. It's not necessary. It's just personal preference and what you got and how are you going to use it. So I'm going to have my medium and my paint, and I'm going to start pretty high from my end at the top of my tree over here, and then slowly go down and then back up. So my trees, I know that from actually look at there's that horizon line that I painted earlier or drew earlier. From there up, that this is this triangle and this triangle. I know at least that much are going to need to be tree. And anything below here is going to be completely covered. So I'm going to start my first tree right at this edge of this paper, or canvas, excuse me. And I'm going to go from here and up. There is one. Now I can keep extending these if I feel like it needs to be taller. And I'm not diluting this because I definitely want my trees to be as black as I can. There is that little mustache action. I can always make them taller if I get to the end and I'm like, the tree needs to be way taller for as wide as it is. But the central line helps me envision where the central point is of the tree and where the trunk should be. It's hard to see in this light for me. I might move a light there. I don't know if that makes it weird for you. There we go. That's easier for me. Hopefully you can see that all right, maybe even better. So I'm filling in to here, but I know that I have more trees. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to say I want another tree to end about here. So here. And then this tree is about here. Pulling it down. And then my little mustaches. That's sound effects. You didn't know I made sound effects, did you? I always make sound effects. I can't believe it's taken this long. Or maybe I just didn't notice I was making sound effects. Little mustaches down and around. And again, this doesn't need to have, unless I want to have texture. Now, what I could do, if I had a darker gray or black, I could say that these are my furthest away trees and do different layers based on values. So you can give atmospheric depth with the different layers for different values. But I've got this one gray and I can't get any darker. So it ends up being, this is blocked so that you don't get any of that shine directly on your trees that are close. But having the lights and darks, the darkest dark would be here because it's the furthest away from the light. And these grays would be closer. I think I said that right. Now I'm questioning myself. But having the darker grays and black would add to that value scale that would give it more depth. But in the original painting, I'm pretty sure that this is all black instead of this pavement gray. I'm going to add another one about here. And little mustaches. Pew, pew, chew, chew. And another one about right here. I'm going to start on this side and then go back with a more fine brush on some of these. So I'm just filling these trees out with the very basics, and then I can add some smaller ones in between. I want this basic shape, but I don't want to hide too much with the trees. And I definitely don't want these triangles to be, they're so geometric instead of having those organic edges of the tree mustaches. So I'm going to have one that's taller way up here. So I'll start down here to meet there. I'm filling it in there. Now, I'm not going to add too many, what's the right word? I'm not making any bigger branches on either side. Even though this tree is bigger, it's still going to have about the same size branches because of the distance away it is. So keeping that in mind, I'm not going to make my trees super big and bulky. Rather than adding a bunch of bulky trees, I think that for this I would add more trees, if that makes sense. Get a little bit more of this paint. It's my pavement. And then just a touch more of the float medium because I can feel it getting kind of tacky, a little sticky there. And it's all globbed up on my brush. I can either wipe it on my tag board or pull on the edge again of my palette to pull that paint down to a usable area rather than way up here. Little mustaches. Got another one about right here. Oops. Again, here is that black point, I guess. Imagine that's what it's called in photography, is a black point where you just, can't see it anymore. And I just had that thought of maybe that's the black point in painting. I honestly don't know if that's a thing. I don't know why, I just thought of that. Oh, homework time. So if you have a point on the horizon, I talk about perspective. We have a point in the horizon, and that is my vanishing point. So it's always the spot where you just can't see any further. And if I were doing buildings, I would start at that point to give my angles. And I'm kind of doing that very loosely with the trees, saying here's my central point, and the ones closest here are going to be the smallest, and then these are going to be the tallest. So it has to do with that perspective, and again, giving a depth of field is part of the reason why we are doing it, or I am doing it this way. I think I need to move my paint up just a little bit to match, because I've got this like half an inch here that doesn't have a lot of the splatter. So I'm going to make these trees just a little bit bigger and wider. Little mustaches. So I can fill in and meet where that skyline needs to be. I was just being a little conservative, I think. You can always make them taller. And it's kind of hard to cut down trees in the painting. Ooh, that doesn't sound like fun at all. So there's that line. and definitely a pine forest here. Sometimes I like to go back and add the branches of like maple trees or maybe some grass or bushes to give it some different texture. But this one I think is just so dark that I don't feel like I need to go back and do that. So here's my base and my tree. And it's okay to go rough in the space and then fill it back in. Nothing wrong with that. Making it just feel right for you. I'm sure it looks different in real life than it does on the screen too. And I wonder if it's giving me the advantage or not. It's hard to tell. I'm feeling pretty good about this one though. I only wish I had a black paint instead of the gray. I'm going to switch brushes a couple times here. The first switch is that. Oh, look, I've got my little, I don't know if you guys can see, I've got a little stink bug friend. Stay out of my water. Stay out of my water. That is not a swimming pool. Come on. Go away. Oops. So my other paintbrushes, another way to do trees is to use a very square brush. I think this is the squarest, smallest brush I have. Ooh, that's not true. This is the squarest, smallest brush. I'm running out of practice space here. Move my water up here and do a little practice. So float medium. Another way to do the trees is to do your line. It's biggest at the base and then smallest at the tip. And you can do the tip and do back and forth like that. That's kind of sloppy, but the basic of kind of like just the tip of the brush and zigzagging up the tree. Using the brush as much as you can to make the forms rather than try and fight that shape of the brush. I think it's when I realized I could do that and just use it almost like a stamp, I was like, oh wow, that's so much easier. I'm just gonna let it do its thing. I'm just going back and adding just a little height to my trees into that darkness. And then using the side, well, I'm not using the side, I'm going horizontal and then vertical to add the different little bits. And I don't want this to be completely flat down here. I want some texture for those trees way off in the distance, but not too much. And then over here a little bit, I'm going to make these guys a little bit taller. and then go in and fill in these spaces. But I think that's about it, really, is just filling all this back in and touching up some of the spots on the trees. Oops, I hit blue. If I wanted to, oh, before I go any further, you know what I could do? Oh, this is fun. I just had this thought. This right here, as I'm filling this in, if I wanted to make a pool of water right here, reflecting that night sky, I definitely could right now, which would be kind of neat. And all it would really take is adding a little bit of attention to my bank that would be the furthest away right here, and saying, oh, here's a landform. It's kind of jutting out into the water, and here's this landform that curves over but off the paper or canvas. And over on this side, see, this is, if I had a black, this would be even better, because I could do this and then have a black that would stick out above and over, and I would paint another tree right here. I might block it in to say, oh, there's a pine tree right here, another tree, and then I can go back with my my permanent marker, my ultra black Sharpie, and go over this, say here's a pine tree that's very close, and it's so close it is blocking this view here, and there's also something over here that's blocking that view, so I'm going to gob on some paint, say, oh, this is the end of that pool that I'm looking at. Maybe add a little swoop, couple branches sticking out, some plants, random things, some texture here, indistinct, maybe a tiny little start of something over here, teeny little pine tree that just started. His brother, his cousin over here in this corner. Just kind of blocking it in. Now, the best way to do this would be to add a darker black here if I had it. So it might not look as awesome as I'm hoping it to be, but it's pretty fun. I'm going to curve this one down just a little bit here. So there's kind of a rainbow upside down U that goes from here to here. Make sure it comes down on the corners because it's just a pond, and that little bit of water is not a huge ocean, and I definitely can see that this is not going off forever. But now I have this reflection, this Milky Way into the water. If you don't have that, that's okay also. You can just fill that in. Mine actually looks accidentally fun. I'm going to paint on this edge here to close off my painting so I can see that there's part of a forest here also. And then kind of frame it with texture of the plants. So I'm going to let that dry, I think, and call that a night. And let it dry. If you have any questions, you can keep asking. I'll be here for a few minutes, washing brushes and such, letting the film roll. One thing you could do if you were so inclined, if you wanted to go back and add like some of these stars, they're they're a lot larger, like this one right here. If you wanted to go back and take like a teeny, like tiny little brush and like make an X kind of star, you could totally like burst those out like that there were stars bursting in the sky, or this one right here to make it that burst pattern to it. But I feel pretty good about where it's at, especially as an impromptu painting. Now these ones, I usually, if it's here and here, those are kind of planned, but I feel like these are okay, that they're symmetrical enough with these stars that it's gonna work. If you want to make it really pop and really have that effect of being super symmetrical, you would definitely be very intentional about whatever is on this side of the horizon line is equal and opposite on this side. So hopefully that helps. I'm not seeing any questions that are popping up, but I'm going to keep looking while I start cleaning up and try not to overanalyze my own work, because I am great at finding my own mistakes. I'm sure that I'm not the only one, but I really enjoyed this. I think it was a good opportunity. I am already planning the next painting. And if I turn this off before I get to answer your questions in the live stream, go ahead and ask. I'm going to clean this video up and probably post it, or maybe just leave it as a live stream. I haven't decided. But go ahead and comment here or comment on Facebook and let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. I'm going to clean up and go to bed. It's getting late. Woohoo! I just got that message. Awesome. I hope it helps. I'm going to close this out and have a good night. I'm just going to clean up and then I will check to see how things went for you. I have lots of questions.